again from Munich, and I'm joining in on the Orchid Tag, although I haven't been actually tagged, but I have to refer to one of Roger's recent videos where he basically permitted people to join in that haven't been tagged, and I do feel like doing this video now, so I do it. And I also need a bit of a cheer up because I have been woken up quite roughly by my smartphone, by the Cut1 app, which is an app that basically warns you of any dangers around you. Let it be environmental catastrophes, accidents, or whatever. And also criminals. And unfortunately, we have a situation with a criminal in Munich. Now, I'm not immediately in danger because I'm not directly in Munich per se. I'm in a smaller town north of Munich. Still, it's close enough. Too close for comfort. And yeah, we had a lunatic who stabbed 5 people. That is at least my state of information around the area of Munich East Station. As far as I know, no one has died, which is good, but the lunatic seems to be still on the loose, so yeah. I hope they get him soon, before he can do any more damage. But yeah, I want to do something positive on this day, and I hope everyone will recover quickly from that nasty event. So yeah, let's get on with the Orchid Tag, shall we? Now, what is the Orchid Tag actually? For those who don't know, new people might not know what that actually is. It's basically just a set of questions that you answer in a video, and then you tag 2 or more or whatever number of people that they shall do the same. And so we get a nice set of videos all related to the same topic, and it's a nice community building measure. And that's also why it isn't really important if you have been tagged or not. Simply do it. It's a bit of fun. It's not a formal thing that you have to follow every rule. So yeah, join in if you want. The questions are in the description, but I will also read them out here, of course, and probably put it as text in the video. So yeah, let's start, shall we? Question number 1. What part of the world are you growing your orchids in? Well, as I said, I'm in the periphery of Munich, north of Munich, and this is southern Germany. Very southern Germany. Austria isn't far. So yeah, we have a really mild and temperate climate overall. We do get some extreme hot spells or extreme cold spells, but basically it's nothing too extreme. The big downside of being in the temperate zone is that you also get very short days in the winter, which isn't that good for continuous growers. Because once you have the short day length and the light that you get is very dull because the sun is so low in the sky, so the light intensity is nothing to write home about. And yeah, orchids for the most part are continuous growers, and they will slow right up in the winter. Yes, even this Catasetum here, which shouldn't be a continuous grower, but it is. Yeah. So that's it for my climate and the part of the world where I am. Question number 2. How long have you been growing orchids? And what was your first orchid? Do you still have that? I'm into growing orchids in a more serious manner since about a year and a half. And my very first orchid, that I still have, yes, was a white Phalaenopsis. But that's from my first spell of orchid growing, if you would want to call it like that. And it's not here, it's at home with my parents, in my room there. It's now very above 10 years old. Yeah, and it's still around, blooms and grows reliably. What first got you into the orchid growing hobby? Now that's a bit more complicated. and I can't remember exactly, but there were some triggers, I guess. First, my mother always loved gardening and keeping houseplants. We have a nice garden at home, we have a vegetable garden, we have many hardy plants in the ground outside. We have winter garden where she also has things like oleander and an olive tree, and I also have an oleander that I grew from a cutting about 10 to 15 years ago, and it's now a nice little tree. So yeah, I've always had some attachment to plants in general and gardening. And I guess one of the bigger triggers for the orchid hobby was that my parents were gifted a white Phalaenopsis hybrid for their 25th wedding anniversary 15 years ago. So they had their 40th this year, so this worked out well. And I always wanted to have one because I've always have seen them around in garden centers. You know, they were pretty, they were colorful, and I was all into them as a 10-year-old. But my mother didn't want to buy one because they were quite expensive at that time, and she said, yeah, I do not know enough about them, this will just die on me, they are too expensive for that. So I was very glad when they were gifted one. Unfortunately, it didn't live long. Don't know if the plant came with a disease or it was just mistreatment on our behalf, but yeah, unfortunately it died. But yeah, this thing triggered the whole thing, and now me and my mother have a bunch of orchids. She has tons of complex hybrids. Basically in every room of the house that is somewhat suitable for them, there are some complex hybrids lurking. And yeah, I have a bit more special types. Yeah. Then after graduating school, all the plant thing died back a bit. See what I did there? Because yeah, adapting to university and the whole thing, I didn't have the nerve for growing houseplants that much. Because yeah, you know, for me student life is... Back then it was pure hell, and until today I simply hate it. I'd rather work 10 hours a day, at least I would get paid. So now as a student you still have to work incredible hours to do well, and still have to worry about how to pay your rent, so you have to work additionally. It sucks. Anyone who says students have an easy, cheerful life, I have simply one answer: go fuck yourself. It might be true for students that have chosen easier subjects than me, but at least for scientific subjects like engineering, math, physics, chemistry, it's hell. It's pure hell, and you are so glad when it's over. And I'm looking forward to the day when I step out of the STEM university and have never ever get back to it and see it from the inside. That's my relationship to college and studying. I'm glad that I have the opportunity, don't get me wrong, but the whole process, it is not nice. But I'm severely digressing. Okay, question number 4. What kind of growing space do you have? Well, you're looking at it. I have a kitchen table, and that's basically it. It has the advantage that it gets light from 3 sides and from above, so I have very good light here. But it's basically house environment. So the humidity is okay-ish. In the summer it gets quite low, but yeah, it works for me. You can see that it works. Yes. Question number 5. How many types or genera of orchids do you grow, and what are they? So let's keep this short and sweet. I have Angrecum. I have Catacetany type orchids, in particular a Cataceta, a Fred Clarkiara, a Cycnodes, and a Moniara. And Fred Clarkiara and Moniara are intergeneric hybrids, so there are 3 or more species genera involved in that. Then I have dendrobiums. I have a spatulata type dendrobium and a Latoria dendrobium, and I think you can see what is going on with that, but I'll elaborate on that later. Then I have oncidiums, or Oncidium Alliance orchids, and this would be this Oncidium sotuanum. And I have a Brassia hybrid that is so sad that it even isn't worth showing it. Basically, I just can't bring myself to throw it away. But I don't really know why I even bother with that thing anymore. Then I have Paphiopedilum. Paphiopedilums, 4 of them. 1 species and 3 primary hybrids. The most special one is this Rothschildianum cross in the background, which is incredibly slow and will be a monster one day, I hope. And of course I have Phalaenopsis. I have this primary hybrid and I have 2 complex hybrids, one of which is at my workplace. And last but not least, I have Cetidae japonica. Yeah, I hear you all shouting, it has been reclassified as a Phalaenopsis, la 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 la. You know what, I don't care. You know what, because the Asian taxonomists reclassified that as Hygrochilus. So even they cannot make up their mind what it should be, so I'll stick to Cetidea. It is a Cetidea and it will be a Cetidea for me. Live with it. And it's the prettiest name out of the 3 anyway, so why dump that pretty name? Okay. That was number 5. Question number 6. Do you actually know how many orchids you have? Yep, I do know. I have 18 plus 1. 18 in my flat here and 1 at my workplace. Question number 7. What would be the one thing that you could say was your top orchid gripe or pet peeve? Well, on the top of the list would be blasting spikes. Blasting buds is bad enough, but a whole spike just failing, or better said, 2 of them because the other one is also yellowing? Shame on you, damn Dendrobium rotosticto. So looking forward to more of those blooms and now both of the damn spikes have failed. Stupid thing. And my second pet peeve about orchids is basically orchid drama. Mostly of this happens on the internet. For those of you who have been around in the orchid community here, surely will remember the whole Fusarium panic of last year. We all know how that started. And if you don't know, you don't need to know, because it was just incredibly stupid. And I even quit Facebook because of that. I actually just joined Facebook shortly before that, because I thought to myself, well, to communicate with all the nice people that I've got to know on YouTube, Facebook would be the easiest way. Although I don't really like Facebook as such, but I thought, well, for that I can take it. I don't have to share any private information if I don't want to. Or, yeah, you know what I mean. But about 2 months later I was out of there again, because it was just a battleground and I hated it. And you had people saying, oh, I've got an orchid with Fusarium from that nursery, they are so bad. And I was just straightly face-palming. And yeah, my forehead was hurting because, you sometimes get bad plants out of nurseries or sick plants. For once, you cannot see from the outside if a plant has Fusarium. We basically had to hack every plant you have to pieces to check for it or get it tested in the laboratory. In nursery, they have thousands and thousands of plants. How is it simply not feasible for them? Or if they do, the plants would be incredibly expensive because the money they spend for the examination has to come in again. No, simple calculation. So my stand on this is suck it up, spray it with a fungicide, If it lives, it lives. If it dies, it dies. That's the game with plants. They are living things. Nobody can guarantee you that they will do well for you. So stop whining, grow a pair. Yeah. And the last pet peeve that I have, which is a bit silly and unimportant, and don't take me totally serious here, is misspelled orchid names. You know, if I see an orchid species name, like for example, yeah, this Dendrobium antenatum, if I see the antenatum written with a capital letter, my eyes get all twitchy and yeah, you know, my brain hurts. Please, please, please. I know orchid names can be complicated sometimes, but that's what the internet is for. Simply copy and paste them. Please. Please, pretty please. Yeah, being silly here. I won't hate anyone just because he misspells an orchid name. It's just that my eyes start to twitch a bit. But that's all. I can live with that. Okay. Question number 8, I guess. Yeah. What are your favorite places or least favorite places to buy orchids? Well, my least favorite place to actually buy orchids are big garden centers. Because at least to the ones I've been, I've always made the experience that the orchids there are incredibly expensive. For example, you pay above 20 euros for a complex hybrid phal just because it has 2 spikes. Oh my goodness. And they sometimes have quite a variety of them, but they are almost always quite rubbish plants, and for that they are simply too expensive. You know, a cattleya for over 20 euros that you can see is in bad media and on the way down. No. So my favorite places to buy orchids, well, it depends. If I want a complex hybrid Phalaenopsis, you know, as a gift or somewhat, I don't buy them for myself anymore, I would head straightly to some of the big grocery discounters, like Lidl, Aldi, when the European folks also know them, they're all over the place. And they sometimes have incredibly nice complex hybrids, Phalaenopsis, for a quite low price, like about 5 to 6 euros for a Phalaenopsis with 1 nice spike or even 2 spikes. They're dirt cheap. And they're often in quite reasonable condition. You know, this Phalaenopsis I also got from a grocery store. Now it suffered a bit due to the extreme report I did on it, but it's blooming like crazy. So yeah, for complex hybrid phals, the cheaper the better. So grocery stores basically. And for any other orchids, you know, species orchids or any other fancy plants, I simply go to orchid nurseries, to their online shops, or I have Orchids and More about 5 kilometers away from where I live. So yeah, I'm lucky to be in Germany because we have quite a nice set of orchid nurseries. You know, we have Schwerter, we have Wichmann, we have Kopforchideen, we have what else have we got? You know, Elsner. There are quite a good bunch of nice orchid nurseries in Germany. So you don't have to pay expensive international shipping if you live here. That's one upside. But I'm not one to order any more orchids because simply I don't have any more space. So yeah. What is question number 9? What is the worst orchid advice that you have ever heard, and did you follow it? Well, that would be the just add ice orchids. I haven't seen them actually in Germany, but I've heard about that. And they're basically just complex hybrid Phalaenopsis that are being marketed by this particular company who thinks everyone is an idiot and too dumb or too lazy to handle a watering can correctly. So what their marketing concept is that, yeah, just put an ice cube on top of the orchid media, let it melt, and that's how you water your orchid in the most easiest and comfortable way. I don't know what's exactly easy about that, because for me it's more of a faff to actually make ice cubes than just simply fill a watering can, but yeah, it's an insult to everyone's intellect. And did I follow that advice? Yeah, I don't think I have to say anything more about that. Simply stupid. And if you have been given that advice, don't follow it. You will kill your orchid with that. Because, you know, it's a tropical orchid. They don't get snowed on. Because it doesn't snow in the rainforest. Hate to break the news to you. Just mucking about. Next question. What are your 5 favorite orchids out of the orchids you have? Well, I don't have any particular order because I just can't make up my mind on that. So I'll just go along. Well, one of my favorites is, of course, this Oncidium sortuanum here, because although it takes an age to develop these bloom spikes, when they open they're an absolute spectacle. The fragrance is incredibly strong. You get a headache if you sit next to this too long. But yeah, this basically ticks all the boxes. It's an incredibly vigorous grower. I always call it a weed because it is. It's growing like hell. The blooms have a nice shape, a nice color, and with the strong fragrance they have, yeah, definitely one of my favorites. Then we have this little dendrobium here. Now this has never bloomed for me. This is Dendrobium antenatum, but it's a very young plant. And I kind of hope that I will get some blooms next year, but probably I will get blooms in 2 years. But we'll see. But I like it because it's a cute little plant and it's also growing very well for me. Just a cute little thing. I love it to bits. And then, of course, that is probably my most favorite, but yeah, I don't care. Don't care about the order. This is a Sidirea japonica, as stated before. And I do have a bit of a spleen for Japanese orchids, you know, Neophinetia falcatas. I have actually one, but I do think it got some kind of infection and it will die soon, unfortunately. I try to save it, but yeah, don't be too optimistic. So yeah, I guess that's my overall favorite. And here's a bloom picture, because that is not in bloom, and it will, when it blooms again, this will be in early spring. But yeah, simply the color of the blooms, the shape, and they're so elegant and are nicely fragrant. Very nice thing. So this was number 2. No, this was number 3. Number 4 would be Paphiopedilum delenati, simply because of the gorgeous foliage it has. So it's decorative all year round. It's also a good grower. No, it has grown this new fan, and the old fan is still there, which is good. And this has already bloomed, so I can show you a picture of that. So, and for number 5, I cannot for the life of me make up my mind which to choose, so I'll include both. This is Catasetum incurvum by Ten Dragons Nightwasp and my Fred Clark Yara After Dark. This one simply because I've grown it from a young plant since last year, and it does so well. It's my little baby, which is currently in the process of taking over the world. Because it's growing so good, growing so well. And the blooms are quite unique, and you know, this is a seedling, or this was a seedling, so no one else has that particular type of blooms. Well, I will try to make a division of that and send it off to sunny Portugal next year, so there will be another person who has that, but simply it's quite unique for me. And Fred Clark Yara After Dark simply because the blooms are so gorgeous, even though it hasn't bloomed for me yet, like the Dendrobium antenatum. But I'll sneak a bloom picture in, as one does. So yeah, these are my favorite orchids from the ones I have. Do you have any orchid related stories is the next question. Well, I have a little anecdote, which involves the catasetum here. So you need some info beforehand, in case you don't know much about catasetum orchids. Their blooms have only one sex. You know, normally orchid blooms have the parts of both sexes. They have pollinia and they have the collar. But with catasetum blooms, they choose their sex basically according to the environment they're growing in. If they have nearly perfect conditions, they will most likely produce female blooms, because they say, well, I've lived in such good conditions that I can easily support a seed pod. And if they don't live in near to perfect conditions, they think to themselves, well, conditions are not that good, they are okay, but I don't want to support a seed pod. So I'll chuck out male blooms to pollinate another plant. So yeah, as the conditions here are not perfect, it decided to be a boy and chucked out male blooms, which is good because they are the ones you want as a grower, because they are much fancier and more colorful. But the wicked feature of these blooms is that they shoot out pollinia. So they have two little trigger hairs, and if an insect crawls into the bloom and touches one of these trigger hairs, the pollinia shoot out and hit the insect on the back and are instantly glued to them. So yeah, and I wanted to show this wicked feature to my boyfriend. And I also wanted to scare him, but it didn't work out, because when I said, yeah, come on, stick your finger in one of the blooms, and you know how catasetum blooms look, they are already looking weird and dangerous, so he didn't do it, he chickened out. So I said, okay, I do it myself, you a little chicken. And I did it, and it was all shits and giggles, because yeah, the pollinia was stuck to my finger and it looked like a dick with balls, and yeah. But then I explained to him that this was the pollen of the plant. So basically the semen of the plant, if you want to call it like that. And yeah, it was the point when his straightness kicked in and he said to me, so this plant would have basically jizzed on me? Are you mad? Get it away from me. Yeah, he's such 100% straight guy, he doesn't even want a male plant to touch him in any sort of weird, sexually connoted way, I guess. Yeah, which is good for me, I think, but yeah, it was a giggle for me. He wasn't too enthused by it, but yeah. He lived with it, as one does. And the last question would be, what would be my advice for beginners? Well, don't let anyone discourage you, I guess. You know, when you get into the orchid hobby a bit more seriously, you read on the internet or you read in books, and first thing you hear, yeah, don't water them with hot water, they can't take it. You need the most pure water you can get, collect rainwater, and then you live in a flat and think, oh, I can't collect rainwater, what a shame. You know, most orchids are quite tough. They can put up with a lot of adverse conditions. Of course, we want to provide the best conditions, because then you get the best results, bloom-wise. But yeah, what I don't understand is how that connotation of orchid species are difficult came up, because when you think about it, most of our house plants that are said to be foolproof, hardy plants are actually species plants from probably a whole different part of the world that you live in, and they're still doing good, and almost everyone can keep them alive without much fuss. And I like to think the same about orchids. Yes, there are the hybrids that are bred for living in a house, but you can also keep species on the windowsill, and you don't need a reverse osmosis unit to produce pure water if you can afford one. There are much more easier ways, so don't let anyone discourage you from keeping other orchids than complex hybrid Phalaenopsis. You see this Oncidium sortuanum, it's an orchid species, but it's incredibly easy to grow. There are orchid species that won't do well on the windowsill, I'm aware of that, but there are so many that will do well. So, yeah. But I also would say if you are an absolute beginner as far as houseplants or gardening are concerned and you want to grow orchids, I would highly recommend the complex hybrids. Not because I think that beginners are not capable of growing orchid species, but I think as an absolute beginner you need more reward when growing plants. And you know, the complex hybrid Phalaenopsis, they bloom all year round without much fuss. And you have successes. So, unlike with most species orchids, because they have a very particular growing season. So you have 1 month of blooming and 11 months of taking care of it. And I don't think that is the best scenario for an absolute beginner. So yeah, that's it with my Orchid Tag. All done. And of course now I have to tag 2 other people. And the people I want to tag are Track McNian, simply because I want to hear from him again. He's not the most regular uploader, which is fine, we all have real lives to attend to. So, but yeah, he has an incredible collection of Japanese orchids. He has some city rares and he has a bucket full of nice neophynaceas, or neophynaceas, as I call them. And yeah, I hope that he'll join in on that. And the second person I want to tag, and I'm showing this plant with a reason, because I want to tag Ed from Ed's Orchids, and or as I like to call him, Perfupedilum King, because he has a whole greenhouse full of nice slipper orchids. It's incredible, and he basically got me into getting this Rothschildianum cross. So Ed, you're a very experienced grower and nicely Brit and pleasantly British gentleman. I would be delighted if you played along in the Orchid Tag and do your version of it. So yeah, since this video is again indecently long, I'll end it just here. Hope you enjoyed my ramblings. I know I'm a bit insufferable. When I get started I can talk and talk for hours and hours. But that's the beauty with YouTube videos, you can simply shut them off and shut me up. Okay. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe see you next time. Oh, bye bye from you, Nick.